So, hello and welcome along to another edition of Isolation Interviews here for Hospital Radio and my YouTube channel. And I'm super excited to be joined by the amazingly talented Ross King. Thank you for joining me.
Well, thank you. I'm not sure I can live up to that introduction, but thank you. I'll do my best. People will be amazed that you used amazingly and talented in the one sentence, but thank you. That was amazing.
Now, obviously, the world we find ourselves in is very, very strange. How are things over because obviously you're over in LA. How are things over there?
It's a strange time. I think it's kind of similar to what you're going through there as well. No one's quite sure what's happening. It's all very confusing. We've got masks on a lot of the time, and then you go to a restaurant, you take your mask off. I was back in the UK about 3 weks ago, and I think in my sort of shortish stint there, I had something like 6 PCR tests. So much so that I had a nosebleed. I actually had a nosebleed from having so many little mini pugil sticks stuck up my nose. So it's strange at the moment. I think it will continue to be for a long, long time. So I think it's that simple thing, isn't it? Just get on with it and do your best. And it's a horrible time for everyone, but you've got to try and be as positive as you can. And I know that's so hard. It's easy for me to say, but hard for a lot of people. So I feel, it's just that kind of that British spirit of up and at them, which I'm trying to, tell the Americans about as well. This is the way to do it. It's that keep calm and carry on type thing.
I mean, for you guys in the States, I mean, I take it at the moment in LA, I mean, is there a lockdown? How is it working at the moment? Are you free at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, we're reasonably free. For a while, the mask mandate was changed, and so we didn't have to wear masks at all. But now it's very much back on, as I mentioned, in restaurants and shops, indoor places. I went to a concert last night, which was the first proper. Well, actually, I went to a concert outside at the SoFi Stadium a while ago, and everyone still had to wear masks. And last night, everyone had to wear masks, and there was kind of social distancing. But I think this is the problem, that no one really knows. It's like, should we be social distancing? Are we hugging? Are we shaking hands? Are we not? And there's just mass confusion. But it's mass confusion the world over. So I think we're all in one big confused state. It's the United Confused States of America.
I mean, that's the thing, is that the world is having to kind of adapt and get used to, the mask wearing, which hopefully will take going forward, because it just seems to work so well. I mean, going forward, do you see this as a kind of a long-term thing?
Yeah, I mean, my simple thing is I'm just going to do whatever it takes and whatever makes other people feel comfortable as well. I mean, I know everyone's got their own opinions on it all, but the way I look at a lot of it is just trying to be mannerly. And if someone feels happier not touching or shaking hands or hugging or having masks on all the time, even if you're in someone's house, whatever it is, I think it's a little bit of manners and it's a little bit of respect. So, I'm happy to go along with it all and get through it as quickly as we can.
Now, obviously, in the height of the pandemic, when the world was having to adapt and change, how did you find the changes and having to basically adapt, to change the way you work? How did you find that all?
I found it not too bad, to be honest, Matthew, because I'm a great person for embracing change, and we always have to change, and especially in our business. We're changing all the time, and technology changes in the simple way that, you and I are chatting over Zoom at the moment, things that were never really possible before. So much so that I also have a TV studio in my house here in Los Angeles now. And we have a thing called Live View. And to just, without being too technical about it, because I'll baffle myself, is that you can have a normal TV camera now and you clunk this big thing onto the back of it. And it's a bit like 10 to 15 cell phones, mobile phones. And that transmits broadcast quality pictures. So in days of old, we'd have had to have had a satellite truck here and cables thrown everywhere and in fact, we did that once, and it seems not that long ago. I remember we did have a satellite truck outside it was either Good Morning Britain or Lorraine. We were shooting here at the house. So that's all changed so much. So you can go from anywhere. And then even I was doing a show for the BBC in Scotland called The Edit, and they wanted me to go into their show. And I said, unfortunately, I'm going to be in Aspen. And I said, well, do you know what? Maybe I can just do it from there. And on my mobile phone, on a little gimbal, on Skype, I went live from Aspen up a mountain. And me holding a little gimbal with the background of skiers in Aspen. It was sensational. So I think a lot of things have been pushed forward like that, which I really enjoy. I'm not good at technology, but I enjoy it. I love gadgets and things like that. And I think it's made us all think in different ways. And you know, even in terms of homes now, that so many people are working from home, this is why it's caused an increase in house prices, certainly out here, for homes that have kind of a home office, or is there space for a home office? So all those things have made such a difference. And I've embraced them. I realize how ridiculously lucky I am to live in Los Angeles, where the sun shines, 350 odd weeks of the year. So it's not a hardship here, because when you're inside thinking, oh my goodness me, you can open the windows, open the doors, the sun's shining. I see the Hollywood sign from every part of my house here. So I'm very, very lucky like that. And also, you can get out and walk around up in the hills here. So it's lovely. And I understand there's a lot of people that haven't had that. A lot of people don't have gardens. A lot of people are in studio apartments. I've got friends in New York who have been in like a 200, 300 square foot studio apartment throughout the whole thing. And people also have not been thinking about getting out. I was quite fortunate that because of my job, I've actually been working and been away a lot of times as well. So I had to go to airports just because of my job, even right when the pandemic was starting. So when the airports were basically shut down, apart from just the flight, there were no shops or anything at all like that. And so I would go there and get on flights, and people were wandering around in like hazmat suits and things like that. So I think being almost forced to go out and about and be involved in the things has made it a little bit easier for me to deal with things. But I completely, fully understand how people, have just terrified of going out as well. And I know some people who still haven't really gone out, and it's such a long time. So again, feel very fortunate.
I mean, would you say you quite enjoy working from home? Is that something you think you'll get used to, or do you miss getting out and being able to be in a studio all the time?
I miss people. That's what I definitely miss. And I'm sure a lot of people do that. And also, tends to be at studios, you have, a good laugh with friends and people that you work with. So I do miss that. But again, I'm just very fortunate, Matthew, that to be in Los Angeles, to be in the entertainment capital of the world, and to have a studio in my house. I've got a radio studio, I've got a TV studio, and we've got a nice setup here in the office. So to be able to deal with all these things, it's okay. I'm again very fortunate.
I mean, obviously, you've done so many amazing interviews over the years, and the fact that you're obviously doing it now from home a lot of the time over Zoom, are you quite enjoying that that sort of new way of doing things? Or do you think that are you looking forward to being able to get back and actually like speak to someone, interview them face to face?
Oh, 100%. For me, that's the best way to do it, because you know what it's like. You're in a room with them. Much as we've got used to this, it's still not the same. And tomorrow I'm interviewing Barbara Streisand, and I've met her a couple of times. I'm so looking forward to sitting down. We're going to do it at her house in Malibu. So all those things. And even if it's just a more normal interview in some hotel room in Beverly Hills to interview someone, I do miss that one-on-one connection. And the fact that you can react much better, you can interject sometimes when you need to. Whereas with Zoom, and we did one the other day, and it was you have two actors, and then they're both in different places. So you have that thing where they're trying to interject and trying to interact and trying to pick up what they just said. And then, as we know, I've been so used to having broadcasts from here for goodness knows how many years, that delay system. which I have actually, I think I've kind of conquered. But I do see with a lot of people that they struggle with it. And again, with Zoom, there's always tiny little bits of delay. It would be interesting for me, though, Matthew, whether or not the stars want to then go back to doing face-to-face, because for them, and I can completely understand it, they're in the house, they've got the glam squad in, they sit there and it's like, and click, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and it's not like sitting in a junket room with, a whole horde of people. So it will be interesting. Although I spoke with Kate Hudson, Clang dropped that name the other day, and she was saying that she really can't wait to get back to interacting. So it'll be interesting.
Now, for you, where did the love of broadcast first come into your life? I mean, how did you sort of realize that was where your interests lie and where you wanted to end up?
Well, strangely enough, or not strangely enough, as a kid growing up in Glasgow, I was going to be a footballer, and I was, I was okay, but as we all know, you think of the guy who was the best footballer at your school, and where did he end up, and who did he play for? So I was going to be. I was okay enough to be, professional, but not at a very high standard. And then I loved performing as a kid. My mum and dad were very musical. And so I was that annoying little kid that would be wheeled out at weddings who would go and sing and tell a joke or something. And I loved all that. And then at school, because of the football stuff, that was just what was going to happen. I was going to be a footballer, maybe be a PE teacher as well. It all seemed to make sense. And then I said to my dad, I actually think I do want to go into show business. And Dad said, well, we don't know Coco the Clown, so I'm not sure what we can do for you here. And then it was my math teacher, a guy called Roddy Hood, who said to me, Mrs. Lawson's son, Alan, who works as a sound guy at the BBC, is in hospital radio. And that's where a lot of people get a great start. And I said, sounds good to me. And I went along to HBS Glasgow, which broadcasts to all the hospitals in Glasgow and a lot of the west of Scotland there. And just immediately fell in love with it, probably a bit like yourself, Matthew. It's such an amazing place to get such wonderful experience. And that was it. And then from there, the local radio station in Scotland, Radio Clyde, was a big station. They needed a Saturday boy. And I went there when I was in hospital radio when I was 15, 16, something like that. Joined Radio Clyde as a Saturday boy when I was 16 and did everything, photocopied the scripts, made the teas, made the coffees, rigged the football grounds, threw the cables, edited everything, which was just a brilliant introduction to everything and a brilliant background, because it's stuff that I have never, ever forgotten. And the lessons that I was taught there was a great guy, Paul Cooney, who was such a great mentor to me when I was a kid. And it was all, don't give me problems, give me solutions. And then I had another mentor, Jack McLaughlin, who explained to me, be a broadcaster. Because I think when you go into the radio side of things, and for a lot of people, myself included, you wanted to be, like the kind of like the top 20 DJ, and you wanted to be the cool and all that stuff. And he taught me to be a broadcaster in the true sense of the word and to do everything. So it made a huge difference to my life. And that was where I got my start and loved it. And then was so lucky that did that, but was still doing more acting at the time and I got TV when I was, I think 18, something like that as well. Again, very young. So yeah, again, you will hear me use the word lucky a lot, Matthew, but it's because I genuinely feel that way. Very, very fortunate.
Do you remember the first time you sat in front of a radio mic? And do you remember how you felt? Do you remember the buzz?
Yes, I do. I remember the horror of hearing my voice coming through the headphones for the very first time. That was such a big thing. I remember almost having a slightly kind of like softish voice. And I think that was because I heard my voice come booming through. And I've always had quite I think from as a kid doing acting and singing, you were always hitting the back wall. And so suddenly when you heard your voice through the headphones, and I suddenly became a bit more like, hi, this is Ross King, Hospital Radio Glasgow. It was suddenly like whispering almost. I remember that. And I also remember that for me, what was the funniest thing was that it's not so much in radio now, but it used to be a big thing of talking over the introduction of records, just hitting the voiceover. And so then they would say, right, so this song's got an 18-minute intro, and they would have a stopwatch and they would play it and they go, blah, blah, blah. And then you talk up to, hey, here's another great one, blah, 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 blah. And here is Madonna. So I said, oh, I don't need a stopwatch. And they said, what? And I said, well, no, because I come from a musical background. So I know it's like a 3-bar, 4-bar intro. Or I said, also, I'm just so used to, like, as a kid singing with bands, I know when the song starts. So they were like, really? So then they started testing me. I remember this in one of the funny little studios, the extra little studios. And it was like, they were pulling people in going, listen to this kid. He can talk out to all the records. And weirdly enough, because I loved that. And then when I went into TV, because it was such a long time ago, they had then what were called 10-second rolls. So now if you just said, and, you know, I chatted with Kate Hudson, bang, they just hit the button, the VT rolls right away. Back in those days, sometimes you even had a 15-second roll. So you would have to say, I caught up with Kate Hudson. And then in your ear, they're going 15, 14, counting down. So you had to then fill that. But because I had been doing all the radio stuff, it was so easy for me, and I loved it as well. So you had to give them a bit of a one word for them to start rolling on it. But I loved that, having to talk up to and then getting into it. So it was such a great part. So yeah, incredibly fond memories of hospital radio in Glasgow.
Now, I mean, obviously, you've like we said earlier, done so many amazing interviews. Do you remember the first time that you sat down with someone famous and had to do an interview? Do you remember how you were feeling? You know, I imagine there was a lot of nerves there.
Terrified, absolutely terrified. And I had the first interview that I did on the radio, and it was down a phone line. It was Cyndi Lauper, that some people might remember, Girls Just Want to Have Fun. And she was not easy. You know, she was like, you know, she was just exactly like that kind of person. And she was like this. And that was quite hard. And then I went to London as a kid to do one of the Bond movies. I remember that, interviewing Roger Moore, who was Bond at the time, who was just lovely, who then did a jingle for me. And I always remember it was like that great thing where you always say to people, would you mind doing a jingle for me, or doing a little voice ident? And he was like, a jingle? And I was like, yeah. He said, well, what would you like me to say? And I said, well, maybe do something like, you know, my name is Bond, James Bond, and his name is King, Ross King. And he went, oh, I like that. And then he did this whole big bit where he went, my name is King, Nosmo King. My name is King, Ross King. No, he is King, Ross King. And I am Bond, James Bond. And it was just, you know, that wonderful moment when someone was really nice to you. And I was so fortunate that it kind of all went from there. But yeah, I do remember that fear that when you're interviewing someone and you're trying to think, you know, and even to this day, if I'm doing an interview, a bit like yourself, you know, because you're really lovely and relaxed, and I didn't want to particularly have a list of questions. I'd have ideas in my head, but I didn't want to sit down with a piece of paper with, you know, questions 1 to 10 on it, which I still see a lot of people do. And it kind of annoys me a little bit, because I go, just go with the flow. And also what's an interesting thing is that, and people obviously won't see this, they'll hear this when you and I are doing an interview. You do a lovely thing, which I picked up from a wonderful interviewer in Scotland called Sheila Duffy. And what she did was exactly what you're doing, is that you're reacting to me, but you're not making noises, and you can laugh silently and things like that, which makes a huge difference, especially when you come to edit it. And so all the tips and little things that I saw from professionals that I worked with made such a huge difference to me. But yeah, I still remember that feeling of fear. And thankfully now, knowing that even if I did run out of questions, or I had one of those little brain freeze moments that we all do, something comes to mind. So experience.
I mean, I was going to say, because obviously, you know, with doing so many interviews, I imagine over the years, like you say, you pick up sort of hints and tips and things. I mean, what would you say is the best bit of advice that someone has given you over the years?
Oh, wow. So many bits of advice. The best bit of advice came from my mum when I was a kid. And she said, just do your best. That's all you can do. And I think I was probably about 22, 23 before I realized that actually, yeah, that you can only do your best, but it's all the things that go into doing your best. Have you researched everything? Have you, if it was football, have you been training? Have you been eating well? Have you been getting enough rest? All the things that go into making you do your best. That's the big thing. So it's such a huge part for me that always do your best. Because if you do, you can walk away from anything and go, did my best. And especially in this business when there's so much rejection and there's so much criticism as well, and more so now than ever because of social media. If you do your best and you've done your best, that's it. There we are. End of story. And that's how I feel about things. And if you get criticized for something, even if I was in a play or a musical that I've done, and if you got criticized and it was fair because you hadn't done your best, you hadn't done your vocal warm-up, you hadn't, had some coaching on it or whatever, then you can accept that criticism and realize that it's right. But if you've just done your best, then there we are.
And I mean, we've talked about some of the interviews you've done, but have you had maybe a favorite person that you've interviewed, or someone that just you always look forward to? Oh, you're doing an interview with so-and-so and you get all excited.
Oh, so many of them. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is just so unbelievably professional. Frightening degrees. Absolutely gets it. Without a shadow of doubt, one of the best. Dolly Parton. Again, just sensational. George Clooney gets it. Julia Roberts, I love. Julia at times is sometimes not the easiest, but in a great way, because she challenges you a little bit. She doesn't let you away with anything, which I love as well. So you do have to be on top of your game for someone like her. And she's great. Absolutely brilliant. So yeah, I mean that's not a bad top four, is it?
I mean, also I imagine as well, because you've interviewed these people quite a few times and they get to know you and they obviously trust you. It must be nice to know when people, I imagine you get people that come to you and want to speak to you, and maybe not so much other sort of people in the public eye.
I do feel very fortunate like that. I think that yes, I have developed a lot of trust with a lot of names over the years. And when it does happen, like, as we mentioned, Barbra Streisand, when I got an email saying, Barbara's got a new album out, she wants you to do the interview, it's really, really nice. Especially someone that I grew up as a kid and, played the songs on hospital radio. So to have someone like that ask for you because, that they trust you, and it's not because I think that they think you'll give them an easy ride or anything like that. I just think they know that I will be respectful and truthful, and also not play silly games and not have something that's trying to trip them up. And, sometimes there are times when you have to ask what could be a harder or more difficult question. And I think it all depends on the way that you place the question and how you gauge them. It's like reading the room. And you can normally sense in an interview, because especially if you're doing an interview with a big star. In fact, Julia Roberts was a great example when I interviewed her, and it was the day that all the college school scandal stuff had come out here, where famous people were getting accused of having paid to get their kids into college. And it was such a big topic that day, and I did want to get her view on it. And knowing her from the interviews that I've done before, I thought it would be interesting to see. But again, with her, my way of it round it was that the role that she was playing in the movie at that time, it was a big relationship between her and her son. And I said, it's quite apt at the moment, what she would do for her son in the movie. I said, with everything that's going on with this college scandal, again, you're Julia Roberts, probably the most famous female movie star in the world. What you would do for your kids and how you look at those things and what's your take on it. And she was brilliant. And she gave a great answer. And as she finished her answer, which was very succinct, she kind of gave me that little nod as if to say, okay, done that. And now we move on. And I got it. And at the end of the interview, I said to her, thanks for talking about that. And she actually said, well, and thanks for knowing then we were moving on. So I think that's a trust thing. And everyone was happy. Everyone was happy. She answered what could have been a difficult question, gave us a lovely, news quote about it all, and then we chatted about other stuff. So yeah, it's very lucky, and I think that has obviously come over the years, and through just different TV from way back, and even when I think as a kid working in Scotland with people like Alan Cumming, who were both 16, and ridiculous things like that. So it's so, and that's what's lovely as well, meeting up with people like Gary Barlow, who was a great mate of mine before Take That had any hits, and is still one of my very best friends. So you've known everyone through that journey. And again with Gary, I think Gary will, more often than not, we will do interviews either here or somehow related through here, because there's a trust, and he knows that you're not trying to score points. That's what I hate, when people do that.
I mean, for you going forward, is there someone that you've maybe not had the chance to interview yet that you would absolutely love to, if the opportunity came up?
No, do you know, that's the crazy thing now, is that my bucket list is pretty much ticked off in terms of stars. There's very few. I was talking about this the other day, and I can't even think of. I'm trying to think now. It's terrible. It's appalling to think. Oh my goodness me. Yeah, there's no one that I can think of off the top of my head that I would really like to interview or chat with. No, isn't that appalling? I've got to that point. That's because I'm so old. I'm so old. I've interviewed them all. Yeah, no, I can't think of. Yeah, no, there we are. Sorry about that.
That's impressive. That is. Now, I mean, obviously, going back to when you first went out to America, do you remember how you felt? Was it an easy decision to make the move?
It was an easy decision to make the move, and I'll tell you why. Which always helps in an interview if someone tells you why. Was that I was doing a play, a musical at Sadler's Wells in London. A very big, fancy musical for the Millennium, Dick Whittington. And I was backstage, and I looked up at the lights, and I was about to go on stage, and I thought, wow, I just felt a little bit flat. I couldn't figure out what it was. And I came off stage that night, and I went home, and I thought, what is wrong? There's something not quite right. And I realized that I kind of done my time for not saying time completely, but I'd done my time in, I'd lived in Scotland, I'd lived in London, I'd worked in Birmingham and in Manchester and in Leeds and lots of great places. And I'd done a lot of things, and I'd done a lot of things that I'd always wanted to do. I'd done a Saturday night TV show. I'd done Saturday morning kids TV. I'd been on the radio in Radio Clyde, and I've been on radio at Capital Radio in London and BBC Radio 5, and had an absolute ball, and then been doing some musicals in the West End. So it was a fantastic time, but I thought, what is it? And I thought, I think I need another challenge. I need a bigger challenge now. And so that was it. And I thought, America I'd always loved. I'd been here a few times. I'd had a couple of offers to come and work here before, and I'd never taken them up because I was loving what I was doing in the UK. And I thought, do you know what? Maybe this is it. Now is the time. I'll just slip off quietly. I wouldn't, even to my friends and family, not make a big announcement that I'm moving to America. And I thought I'll just come out for, 3 months or whatever, and just see how it goes. And those 3 months are now 21 years.
I mean, I had the pleasure of coming to LA back just before the pandemic in, I think it was November of 2019. And I can totally understand why you would want to stay there, because it is amazing. But I imagine, especially this last year, you must miss getting to see family and people who are back home in the UK.
Oh, absolutely. And they miss coming out, which is the hard part. And normally my house here is like Hotel California, with so many different people staying here. And I miss that. And I've had it just a little bit. There's a very good friend of mine, David Stewart, who wrote Dynamite for BTS and What a Man Got to Do for Jonas Brothers. And because of his work, and, he had to do all the self-quarantining and all the different stuff. But he was out here, having meetings and all the rest of it. And he was staying with me, and it was so lovely just having him in the house. And then a couple of other friends would come round that were musicians, and we have a little bit of a jam session. We've got a piano and the guitars and all that stuff. And I've missed a lot of that, just people dropping by, and then people coming across from the UK, and my family especially. So that's been tough, and I'm sure it's been so tough for so many people. And also that fact that year has just gone. We just go 2020. What happened?
The year everyone wants to forget.
Yeah, and kind of almost has forgotten. When as you say, I'm the same as you now. I think, oh yeah, 2019. That was the last time I saw the family in Britain. That was the last time they came out here. 2019. And what happened in 2020? Not really sure.
Now, I mean, what would, if you had the chance to kind of speak to your child self, is there any advice you would give yourself?
I would give myself the advice that there was a wonderful director, Dougie Squires, when I did my first ever pantomime in Glasgow. And I was so desperate to do well, and I was so desperate to learn. And I wanted just any kind of knowledge, please, give me direction. And Dougie said to me, he took me aside one time and I said, Dougie, look, I just want to learn here. Just tell me, is there anything that I can do? And he said, be taller and more talented. And so I was like, thanks for that, Dougie. So I said, yes, okay, I'll do that. So I haven't quite achieved either of those. I would say with I feel ridiculously lucky that I had the most wonderful upbringing in Glasgow. Lovely mum and dad, my sister Elaine, great family, great fun, taught good things in life, to appreciate things. Came from a council house, just, very, very normal upbringing. But I think I've always enjoyed the journey, enjoy the ride, because who knows what will happen, but things will work out. And I think that's it. And that's the advice that I give to people coming into the business, is enjoy every part of it, even the bad bits. When I think of as a kid in local radio with my little thin Radio Clyde anorak at Love Street, Paisley, which is where St Mirren play, just outside Glasgow, the rain, sleet, snow coming down, me on the top of a radio van, and the mast had broken, and trying to put it up by hand, and freezing cold. So when I go down to my studio here in the house and flick a couple of switches and it all goes and it comes on, I go, wow. And that's what I think a lot of those experiences were for. So I think it's take the good with the bad, enjoy them all. It's a bit like good and bad reviews. They all mean the same, not a lot. Just enjoy it and just get on with it and do your best.
Now, I just want to say it's been a pleasure talking to you. But before we go, have you got any messages for anyone who is listening in hospital, or to the amazing NHS staff out there who are doing such an amazing job?
I really sincerely hope that and let's hope this pandemic is over soon, but I really genuinely hope that we don't lose sight of how amazing these people are. Not only have they been amazing through this, they've been amazing all the time. And so I just hope we don't lose that. And I see a lot of things, especially here in LA, that whole initial, let's be kind to each other. And I feel that that's dropping away, and I see people getting exasperated. And I understand there's a fatigue with the whole pandemic stuff, but I just hope we don't lose sight of the fact that the true superstars in the world are the doctors, the nurses, the staff, all these people. And I just hope that we still hold them in as high regard, even when we get through this pandemic, and hopefully we go back to some kind of normality. Let's just not forget how special all these people are. So to them, it's a huge thank you. And, if you're in hospital at the moment, I'm just sending you like big hugs from LA. It's a tough time always to be in hospital, but even more so at the moment. I'm sure people have got so many different thoughts going through their heads. So I just send my best to everyone. But again, let's just hope that things get better and this kindness thing. I think this is it. It's all around to go around, and let's just try and be a little bit nicer.
Now, I just want to say, Ross, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for giving up your time. Of course, keep safe, and hopefully we'll speak again one day.
I hope so too, Matthew. Thank you so much. Take care.